Okay, I just hit record. So good morning and welcome. My name is Dan Bostrom. I'm the Rails Member Engagement Manager, and you are at the Ask Us Anything Escape Rooms event. This event is co-hosted by the My Library Is advisory team. We have a My Library Is campaign, which is something we've been doing for about 3 years now. And our advisory committee helps us plan events, work on projects, write our blog posts, and they've been moving us forward for about a year now, which has been great. So thank you to them. Okay, so here's what today's event is going to look like. I'm just going to do a quick welcome and talk a little bit about My Library's resources that you can access as library staff that are available to you. We'll get to our presentations, which will take about half an hour at least. And then we'll get to the Ask Us Anything portion, where it's a Q&A. You can ask our presenters anything you want about their programs or their approach to escape rooms. I will bring us back probably about 5-2 to kind of wrap things up and then get you on your way before 11 o'clock. Okay, so as I mentioned, the My Libraries campaign is something that Rails has been working on
get them and send them
for at least 3 years. And it's our effort to help libraries tell their story. We are giving libraries resources like templates, videos, a whole bunch of other materials.
Library business while this other guy is talking.
Oh, can I get folks to mute themselves? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you. I appreciate that. So the My Libraries campaign is mylibraries.org. You can find a whole host of things. I'll just mention a few things that you can access. Our talking points document, which is the full color PDF documents that you can download. We have 4 versions: academic, public, school, and special. They're also available as a Word document with notes on there to kind of help you make your case. These can be offered to board members, to parents, to other stakeholders in your community, elected officials, that type of thing. You can also add your library's video. So we have a sharing showcase section. And if you log in using your L2 credentials, you can go to videos. You can add your library's videos. We have a bunch in there from libraries: program videos, tutorials, interviews, a lot of different things, including we did another one of these events last month on binge boxes, and you can access that from the My Library Is video section. That was recorded on July 12th. We had 3 presenters, each giving their views and ideas on how to start and implement a binge box program in their library. So I thought that was a great event. I really appreciated the presenters that volunteered. So you can access that at any time. Look for it on the My Library Is page. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn it over to our presenters. So we have 3 presenters today. The first one is Kari Prange from the North Suburban Public Library District. A second presenter is Karla Wilkinson from the Peoria Public Library. And then our third presenter is Mccutchan from the Princeton Public Library. So Kari, I'm going to turn it over to you. You are free to share your screen.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Everybody see it okay?
Looks great.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kari Prange. I work in the Adult, Teen, and Reference Services Department at the North Suburban Library District. I'm going to be talking about how to design escape rooms, how to start the process, how to design escape rooms on a budget, and I'll also talk a little bit about designing escape rooms on Google Slides for those who are still not doing in-person programming yet. I've designed quite a few in-person escape rooms, mostly for teens, families. I've done a couple of adult ones. I have themes like Alice in Wonderland, Sherlock Holmes, Jurassic Park, Wrath of Poseidon, Escape Dracula Tower, that's an adult one. And I'm currently designing another one called How the Grinch Stole Christmas Again. So I have a variety of different themes. So how do you start? Starting can be kind of overwhelming, especially if it's your first time creating an escape room. All of the processes are relative, so I'm going to talk about how my process and how it works. This one works for me. So the first step that I always do is I choose my theme. So if you have a theme to work with, it's easier to design an escape room. It can be something as generic as just a general music theme, or it can be something as specific as Star Wars or Stranger Things. This makes creating the escape room a lot easier if you have a general theme to follow. So everything is consistent and cohesive. I also find it easier, it's easier to create new clues while working with a specific theme too, because you can recycle some like old clues from previous escape rooms, but you could just put a different spin on it. The second step I always do is I choose the end goal of the room. This can be unlocking a box to find something. This can be escaping the room itself, can be discovering who committed a crime, or whatever you want it to be. Most of my escape rooms end with unlocking a box at the end. The third step I always finish with is I start creating a layout of the entire room, but I also think about the backstory and I create a walkthrough to go along with it. The backstory's purpose is the reason why the escapers are in the room and what their purpose is. So you can really get creative with that. The walkthrough is important because it will give a detailed walkthrough of all of your clue paths. So this is what a typical layout looks like, what one of my typical layout looks like. This is the layout for my Down the Rabbit Hole Escape Wonderland escape room. It was designed for young adults. All of my layouts start with an end goal, which is what I put up here. So this is what they have to do to finish the room. And then you work backwards. It's very important that you always work backwards and not forward. All of my so you have to ask yourself, how many locks are you going to unlock with the final box? Because my escape rooms always end with unlocking a final box. So I always have all of my locks here in individual boxes. I use a hasp on my final box, so I always lock 6 locks on it. So these are the 6 locks that they have to unlock. I use this layout as a cheat sheet. And I always take it in the room with me so I can see what the escapers are stuck on, if something's missing, what they need help with. This also shows the clue paths for each lock, which is something you'll need to always be aware of when you have patrons participating in your escape rooms. I always use several other lock boxes throughout the room. Sometimes I look up, sometimes I lock up the UV flashlight or something else that they need to find. Most of my escape rooms last from about 30 to 40 minutes, except for Escape Dracula Tower, which is my adult room. That one lasts about 40 to 60 minutes because that one's a lot more difficult. So escape rooms on a budget, it is very possible to design one of these on a very limited budget. You obviously will have to purchase the things that you can't purchase or you can't make, like lock boxes and locks, UV flashlights, UV pens, that sort of thing. You will most likely have to purchase those, but everything else you can borrow or make yourself. I made almost everything or borrowed decorations from my house or other coworkers. Working in a library, used books are your greatest asset. You can recover them. You can make book boxes out of them. They make great decorations. You can also make posters, signs. You can print out artwork. You can make origami decorations. For my Harry Potter escape room, I found a free printable of Marauder's map online. I found free printable chocolate frog cards and chocolate frog boxes. Pinterest is your best friend when you're doing this. There are a lot of kinds of stuff that people design that you can download for free. Anything that I can't find on Pinterest, I typically will just design in Canva myself, which is also a really great resource. This first image was a bunch of used books that I recovered. This was from my Harry Potter room. I designed a lot of these. A couple of them were from Pinterest that I downloaded. This one was a book box that I made. It was my first one, so it's a little rough, but it got the job done. These 3 are actually from Pinterest. These are paper foldable cupcakes, a cake stand, and paper teacups that I put together. Those were from my my Wonderland escape room. So these are some example clues from my escape rooms. The first image is from my Wrath of Poseidon escape room. It's a little blurry, I'm sorry. It's a letter written from Aphrodite to Hermes. Hermes is the culprit who stole Poseidon's trident in the room. So the escapers have to recover the trident. And at the end of the letter, it says, Sphinxes are known for their riddles and I am known for my tricks, and this will be my greatest trick of all. And this is supposed to nudge the escapers to look at a Sphinx poster that I designed on the wall, which has a clue written in blacklight ink, and they have to solve it. The second image is from my Escape Jurassic Park escape room. This is just a list of supplies, and 5 of these things on the list are placed around about the room, like the gloves, the rope, the duct tape, the map, and the bandages. And the escapers have to make the connection that these 5 things coincide with the number that they're listed on the list, which gives them a code to unlock a lock. The third image up here is a poster that I made. My coworker graciously volunteered to allow me to use her photo. So Hannah Lightfingers Malloy is the thief that stole the Queen's crown jewels in my Sherlock Holmes escape room. And on this wanted poster is a code to a lock. It's fairly simple, but sometimes the simplest clues escape people's brains when they're thrown into these escape rooms. And the fourth image down here is one of 4 blood type labels that I made for Escape Dracula's Tower. I attached these labels to these tall, large glass vases, and I filled them with water with red food coloring to make it look like blood. And part of this escape room involves looking through Dracula's journal, and inside it mentions what his favorite blood type is. I think it was O negative. So inside the bottom of this labeled O negative jar was a key, and the escapers had to unlock a separate box with a magnet and a string, and they had to fish the key out of the correct jar. So just some fun kind of ideas or clues that I've used. So virtual escape rooms. So for those who are doing in-person programming still, or who are not doing in-person programming, or this could be actually a really good tool to practice with. You could format a realistic version of an escape room that you're using. You could do this method too. So Google Forms is a really popular way to design these, but I wanted to make it feel more like an actual escape room, and Google Slides does that. It's fairly easy to set up, and you will all be sent you'll all have access to a link. One of the Google documents that I gave to Dan has a link with a tutorial on how to design these. The images on the slide are clickable, and they link to different Google documents with clues and links to different Google Forms too. This is an example of one that I designed. This was, I think it was called the Sweet Candy Rescue. It's for our winter reading club this year for teens. The theme is reading is so sweet. So it's all about candy and stuff. So for example, if you were to click on one of these windows of the candy house, it would open up a separate Google document, and it leads to this cupboard full of like magic potions. And then if you click on this well here, it opens up a Google form and it asks for unlock code. This is what it looks like. This is the potion cupboard and this is the form. So yeah, I mean, they're really fun and they're really easy design, and you could use these, you know, if you're designing your first in-person escape room, you could do it this way just to make sure there aren't any hiccups or anything. Okay, so tips to remember. I personally prefer smaller groups as opposed to big groups when I'm doing in-person escape rooms. The smaller groups work better together. 4 to 5 people max is what I allow in my escape rooms. Always make time to reset your rooms if you're doing back-to-back sessions. Is very important. Create a step-by-step reset room checklist if you're doing back-to-back sessions. This will also allow you to reset the room quickly and efficiently before your next section. So you're not just scrambling around trying to remember where goes where. Will your escape room allow hint cards? That's a good question. Sometimes, especially for teens or younger kiddos or even adults, it's nice to include a few hint cards. These can be left on the table in the room. So it allows the escapers to ask for hints if they get stuck. Have coworkers or family members test out your room ahead of time Take notes if they got stuck anywhere. Does the clue need to be altered, or do you need an additional clue or hint somewhere? How long did it take them to finish, or did they even finish? Was it too difficult, too easy? Does anything need to be clarified? Leave a small basket or box in the room and ask the escapers to please place any unlocked locks, tools, and things they found that they don't need anymore inside the basket. This helps the cleanup reset time so you don't have to hunt around for misplaced items. I always do this in my escape rooms. I always leave a basket and just ask them to put any of the stuff in there so you don't have to scramble and hunt around for a rogue lock or something. Always try and make duplicates of items when possible. Sometimes accidents happen, and it's nice to have spares on hand if you're running back-to-back sessions. My last tip is you will have some patrons that think everything is a clue. So to avoid them going into areas or touching things that aren't part of the escape room, just put a note on it or a sign, something that says, not part of the escape room. When I did my Harry Potter escape room, there was a closet in the room that I didn't want anybody to go in. So I put like a restricted section sign on it. So it indicated it wasn't part of the room. Thank you for listening. This is my contact info. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. I think Karla's next.
Karla's next. Thank you, Kari. And I put a link to Kari's Google document with all of her resources into the chat. You can also find it on the L2 event page, which I'll share the link to that in a second as well. So thank you so much, Kari. First of all, I wanted to say that your organization or your flow chart document is so incredibly detailed. It looks like an organizational chart for like an organization, but it's cool. It's cool. It shows how much thought and detail that you put into these. So yeah,
thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, awesome. All right, so Kari, can I have you stop sharing your screen? And our next presenter is Karla Wilkinson from the Peoria Public Library. Hello, Karla.
Hello, thank you. Okay, everybody see that?
Looks good.
All right, so I am going to be specifically talking about my Harry Potter escape room. So this is a more focused, less broad presentation for you. I'm a programming librarian at Peoria Public. We have 5 locations, and I can work at any of the locations. I might be anywhere. All right, so the plan for this escape room, this was the first time we'd done one. I want to say this was 2017 or 2018. We decided to do this for Harry Potter Read Night. So it was myself and a coworker, and this coworker's primary workstation is local history and genealogy. So she's not children's, she's not a programming librarian, but she's a huge Harry Potter fan, and she is game for anything. So we decided to do this together. We were going to set aside 4 hours with 30-minute time slots. We had a lot of supplies because she has a huge personal collection, and we figured that we wouldn't really have to buy that much stuff. So we did have some breakout EDU kits, which I will talk a little bit more about in a second. We already had those. Someone else had asked to purchase those, and at the time they were a lot cheaper than they are now. We had some stuff in library supplies from doing other Harry Potter programs. You know how you just accumulate stuff. Again, my coworker's personal collection, I contributed like a few things from my collection. And then I found this plan on the Programming Librarian Interest Group on Facebook. So if you're not a member of that, I recommend it. You can get a lot of ideas there. And I didn't want to just share the documents with you. So if you are a member of that group, you can search posts. So you can search for Harry Potter or whatever. And the post was by a woman named Beth Van Tassel, December 6, 2017. So I guess I did this in 2018. So if you want her plan, I recommend you go that way to get it, just because I don't want to share her stuff without her permission. So Breakout EDU, it used to be cheaper. I think we got like 2 kits for $150. Now it's $199 for 1 kit, and you get 12 months of virtual access. So on their website, they have other scripts you can use for escape rooms. We never really used those, but you get everything that's included in this picture here. So there's a big box that you can lock. There's a smaller box. There's a flash drive. There are all these locks. So we just used those, and it actually really helped to have more than 1 kit. Although you could use the locks or buy your own locks. But these are interesting locks because they have letters and arrows and colors and different ways that you can make combinations, so you're not just restricted to numbers. This is the script. I just wanted to show you this to show you kind of how it worked. That at the beginning, we just handed them a lockbox, and it had a riddle on the top that said start at the end. And so that led them to books. They found the last book that had a Marauders map, and it just leads them on from there. So our escape room very much has to go in a certain order. The room, so we were doing this in our children's room at our North Branch, which is a round room with carpeted steps. On the left, you can see the black rectangles are where we put tables, and then the red circles where we put Dobby. And Dobby was marking off the restricted section. We also had a restricted section. Since it's a round room, we couldn't like hide our stuff in a corner. So we just, there's a countertop with a sink. So we put everything by the sink, and we put Dobby in front of it, like, hey, you can't go past Dobby. We also sat in the room while they were in there. And that's helpful for a number of reasons, but part of it was just to keep people out of stuff that they didn't need to be getting into. So these are the tables. It's not a complicated setup. We did add a little to what you see here. This was our kind of before picture when we first set it up, before we had anybody come through and test it. So we did add a little bit to this, but not a lot really. You don't need like elaborate stuff, especially with something as popular as Harry Potter. Like, people honestly just wanted to come and have fun with a Harry Potter escape room, and they didn't care that it didn't look like this really immersive experience when they walked in. So rehearse and make changes, definitely. We had my sister and her friend come and test it out, and then we had my boss's teenage daughter. So we had a teenager and a couple of adults come and try it. And we wanted different ages, different familiarity with Harry Potter. My sister and her friend thought they were really, really big Harry Potter fans. They had a little bit of trouble with it. My boss's teenage daughter has read the books, but isn't like, you know, she's that younger generation that isn't necessarily a huge Harry Potter fan. She breezed right through it. So we learned some things from that. We moved some props to make them more visible. We decided it wasn't hard enough, so we added another lock, some more clues. We added more red herrings so that people would be thrown off a little because we thought it was too easy. We changed some paper props to 3D props. You know, it doesn't really help to have a piece of paper that says rat, like you need an actual rat, like not a real rat. But so we made some 3D props. We moved things into better hiding places, and then we added stuff between the tables. So you can see, like, we have piles of blankets and pillows, and we have a trunk with a broom and some Quidditch supplies, and we have robes over here. So we just wanted to make things a little bit harder to find. So on the day of the event, we actually ended up adding another day. We had 16 groups of 92 people. We had one unplanned break. I don't know what we were thinking. We had not planned a break for ourselves. So we learned to number the clues, first of all, because we had a couple of groups that like skipped somehow from clue number 1 clear to the end, and we're done in 5 minutes or less. And so we thought we need to number the clues, and we need to make them stick to the clues in order. And we decided that we needed to plan breaks because sometimes you really have to go to the bathroom or eat. We were starving, and we scheduled more time because we really, even though it was Harry Potter, we did not anticipate how popular it would be. So we did it again in 2019. And that time our setup was a little bit different. So I just have some representative pictures here. I think this is actually my last slide. So I didn't give you a whole lot here because I wanted to be brief, but you can see the setup was just slightly different. We used the same script. We have this pile of socks on the floor next to Dobby. We never gave prizes to people. Like, the prize was completing the escape room, and they didn't care. But in this one, we said, okay, if you finish it, you get to give Dobby a sock. So they just got to pick a sock off the ground and drape it over Dobby somehow. And they thought that was fun. We also covered the windows. So I don't know about the rest of you, but in our libraries, every room has a wall of windows. Just so you know, no one's getting up to any funny business in the room. And we had to cover the windows. Like, we didn't think about that the first time around. There are some really obvious things that you don't think about when you're doing this. And so we just got colored tablecloths at Walmart and covered our windows the second time around, and that was good. And then the last picture over here on the right, I just wanted to show you, this is representative of one of the groups that we had. So it's all ages. I mean, we had more adults coming to do this than I ever would have anticipated. We had some groups that were just adults, like people my parents' age, and like, what, I had never thought that would happen. But a lot of kids too. So some were just kids, some were kids and parents, lots of mix of lots of different groups. So yes, that is the end of my slides, because again, I wanted to be brief. So I will let Ron take the next one.
Thanks, Karla. I really appreciate that. And actually, you know, that looked like the perfect room for that type of event. I like the kind of roundness of it. It's like a castle tower. So it looks really cool. Okay, so thank you, Karla. The next presenter is Ron Mccutchan from the Princeton Public Library. Ron,
Okay.
You are free to share your screen.
Let's see. Okay. So I'm Ron Mccutchan. I'm
Hey, Ron, we're actually.
I didn't do start screen yet. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Thank
okay.
you. It's my usual. Let's see. Where am I? There. All right. Always one step that I can't remember.
Looks great.
Okay. So I'm Ron Mccutchan. I'm in youth services at Princeton Public Library. We are in North Central Illinois, right off of Interstate 80. We're about 50 miles from Peoria, 50 miles from the Quad Cities, 100 miles from Chicago. So we're kind of in the middle of the cornfields. And I'd like to just say that my slideshow is kind of based on one that I did with Neil Schlein, who at the time was the children's librarian at the Muhammad Library. We presented this at the Isle, what used to be the Islam conference a couple of years ago. Let's see. Nope. There we go. So I'm going to start off with, and Kari and Karla both kind of hit this, but when I think about escape rooms, Nicole Scherer, who published this great how-to when she was at the Fairfield, Connecticut Public Library, talked about the 4 elements being space, story or theme, steps, and stuff. And that's a really good organizing principle. I think Kari and Karla both kind of showed that, but I'm going to break it down kind of in talking about that. So space is basically physically what you have, what you need to bring in or take out or block off, how many people you can fit in. Your story, again, it's that backstory, it's your organizing principle, it's what's going to attract people. And as I think Kari mentioned that if you have a theme, it really helps that brainstorming for puzzles and clues. Steps, break it down and work backwards. And then your stuff is literally anything you're going to use, whether it's the printables, your locks, red herrings, your decorations, your clue cards, whatever. So this is the spaces, these are the spaces that I was working with. My first escape room was actually 3, and I was insane. The year that Fantastic Beasts came out, I decided I wanted to do a Harry Potter escape room. And our director would not let me use our meeting room. She said, oh, you can just have it for a night, just use the 3 study rooms. So actually I had to do 3 escape rooms in our study rooms that are 12 by 12, and I'm sitting in one of them right now. So I did 2 herbology ones and 2 magical beast ones and 1 herbology one in this space. So we had to haul things out, haul things in. It was kind of exhausting, but you can make a small space work. Obviously you can't fit as many people. In our meeting room, we have, which is the bottom right image, we've got a lot of space. We can use our projector. It's, we have tables and stuff, and that makes it really well. The other nice thing about the meeting room is it has a storage closet. So I had another space to go into, and I've only used it once, but it was a magical experience. If you have another space or a divided space that they can break into, it creates this kind of like Howard Carter Tutankhamun's tomb moment where you have this aha as they get into another space and new clues and new things to look at. So the 3 rooms that I've done thus far, one was a Harry Potter, and kind of as with Karla, the reason I did Harry Potter is our community, we had a really good bookstore that did a number of Harry Potter launch parties. And so the library participated in that. I wasn't at the library at the time, but I had participated in that. So between the library and myself, we had tons of props and things. And I'm also a Harry Potter freak. So we were able to draw on that, and I still had to purchase some locks and a few other props, but a lot of this I had. The next one we did in 2018 was for the summer reading. Reading Takes You Everywhere, and I did a Dungeons and Dragons theme. And we put, I think that previous shot I showed you, I used Piranesi's prisons lithographs as a graphic on as a PowerPoint graphic on our screen, kind of to help set the mood. The third escape room I did was it's Showtime Your Library, Summer Reading 2019. I don't know how I got into women composers, but the idea that women were also writing ragtime, and a number of them wrote under pseudonyms. And so I kind of decided that the plot for that one was going to be someone who had become very well known under her pseudonym for ragtime, but never got credit. The irony is that the composer I chose, Sadie Kaninsky, actually did get credit, although she wrote band music under an assumed male name, which was interesting. But the goal for the ragtime one was you had to find and say out loud Sadie Kaninsky's name, because she was a ghost that was haunting a music publisher's office that you had gotten locked into. So if you could say Sadie Kaninsky, that would unlock the door. I have a new assistant librarian. She's really interested in the escape rooms, and so we're going to try to do a vampire one for the fall. And kind of my
seems so interesting, but because I've never done one before, I'm just confused. Like how you would.
Oh, sorry. Can somebody? Oh, I got it. Okay. Thanks, Brad.
Okay. Anyway, so theme ideas. This is just kind of a real brief. I'm sure you could come up with anything, but these are things I see a lot on the library programming Facebook page. There was just a discussion about people doing a Krampus themed one for the holidays. Here in town, when I gave a talk at the Rotary Club last week, somebody from our genealogy and local history museum was really interested because they would like to do an escape room based on local history. And I think Muhammad also had done one, their historical society. Archaeology, paleontology, cryptology, that kind of feeds into the Indiana Jones kind of idea. Murder mysteries, I think Kari mentioned that she's done Sherlock Holmes. Literature, Kari also mentioned her Alice in Wonderland. Spy mission or heist, mythology, All of those are really good themes to base around. The more you can get into it, the better. And my problem is I get lost in the weeds when I think about, you know, what my theme is and then do lots of research. So how do you introduce it? I usually like to have either a story or sometimes I'll have an opening slide in my PowerPoint that will kind of set up the thing and give you a hint as to what you're looking for or literally what you're looking for. This is a letter that we had from Amy Beach, who was another famous female composer, to, you know, the not named Sadie Kaninsky, but talking about, you know, that her name will be known. And so that was giving, and also gave a clue in terms of a postcard that they had to find. So again, steps, Kari and Karla both mentioned work backwards from the final solution. I have to say that coming up with that, what that final solution is going to be is the hardest part for me, trying to think of a good, not hokey way. You know, the finding the locked box is always cool, but what does that mean? So whether it's opening a locked door, either actually symbolically, like, you know, if they find the solution, you open the door and say, congratulations, you can get out. Whether it's locating objects like an ingredients for a potion, which is what I did for my herbology lab. Beating a clock, like if you're trying to, the spy mission, you're trying to save the world from nuclear explosion, or identifying a murderer or a thief, or the location of something that people are looking for. And again, this is one of my breakdowns. This was for the D&D room. So basically we had a final lock box and the dragon's heart was in the lock. When they opened the box, there was a congratulations sign and they had a bunch of little just toy plastic dragons that they got to take a dragon with them. So try for a different kind of puzzles. So you're not all working on the same skill set. So maybe you have one or two ciphers, but you have some physical ones, you have some locate or visual clues and some logic, word, math clues, so that different people with different strengths can go. We do our escape rooms for families. So I've got, generally, I recommend they have to be able to read, although sometimes we have little brothers or sisters, all the way up to grandparents. And everybody kind of takes a path. So little kids are really good at looking and finding things and counting things. Grandparents are good for kind of sitting and looking at the clues. I should mention, Kari mentioned that she has a basket that she puts clues in. I always like to have a table, like a free space table that they can work on, and that's where all the final clues get accumulated. So I have one place to go when I'm resetting. So, but generally that's the place where you can bring everything so you can see it all together. So one person isn't walking around with the clue that somebody else needs on the other side of the room. If you're breaking down your paths, it's nice to have a couple that are complicated, but keep a couple of them simple, like 1 or 2 steps, so that they're not just hung up on one, that they have some easy gratification. I tried, and Nicole Scherer in her thing talks about having sort of multiple paths to a clue. When I've done that, they always take the simpler one, which is the less cool one. And I'll show you one of those in a minute. In my next slide, not quite my next slide. So lockables, obviously hit the hardware store or Amazon. You know, there's traditional padlock and keys, there's numerical, alphabetical, directional. The alphabet ones always trip me up because it usually ends up that I can't make a word that I really like. I was trying for one where I wanted the clue to be cake, C-A-K-E, and my lock only made C-E-A-K. And I just could not get my head around that, and that kind of stumbled me on that clue. You also want to look for things that you can lock. So a traditional box with a hasp for a padlock, a multiple lock hasp, like Kari mentioned that she has, is great, because then if you only have one box with the thing to lock, you can put multiple locks on it. This down the bottom, I've got a combination lock box that I can put things in. I have a tool bag that I got at Walmart for not very much that actually has 2 zippers you can lock together. They do gap a little bit, but it's kind of symbolic. And if you put a blanket or something so they can't really poke their fingers through, it works well. I've seen where people use a bike lock or a bike chain to lock up larger items, like to close the lid on a piano bench. Okay, so puzzles, again, trying for different things. For the magical creatures, I had a couple snake tanks, and I did buy some big rubber snakes that used to scare off birds from berry bushes and things. And the clue was the tongue. I think I used the Shakespeare, how, you know, sharper than a serpent's tongue. But that actually turned into a ribbon that was a skittily puzzle. And of course, everybody found the ribbon, but nobody did the skittily because there was an easier clue path. So I was a little disappointed in that. I used, for the herbology one, an old card catalog that we had, filled it with stuff. The clues were the labels, and then within them, I had letters on the specific clue boxes that spelled out one of the ingredients to our spell. Also on the top, one of the puzzles was count on your owls, and I had owls around the room, so the number of owls was also another clue. I bought, for the D&D one, I bought 2 boxes of bones, Halloween, you know, skeleton bones, and marked them up so there were specific codes on a couple of the bones, and the number of bones that had that code went into a clue box. I used a pig pen cipher to mark a door that they had to unlock. This is the door of the storeroom. The 2 rondelles were actually part of my sit-down clue table, but I printed these out. I did them in, actually I did mine in Photoshop, and taped them onto a wood grain table so they looked like they were inlays. And there was a reference to an owl, and the number 7 was one of the clues. The lower left are a series of 3 transparencies that I did for the ragtime one. I was playing with the idea, I'm trying to get things that are appropriate, and glass negatives, you know, are our thing for early photography. So the idea is you had to find all 3 sheets of this transparency, put them together. That number was one of my combinations, but the thing she's pointing to in the middle slide actually says reverse the numbers. So the actual clue was 879 instead of 978. Things to avoid, again, I'll reiterate, you know, try it yourself, have somebody run through it. You never know what's going to do. I had in that lockbox, I had 2 vials of fluid, and I was actually doing a acid base test, a base indicator test. And I'd used 2 vials that I got in that Hobby Lobby, and I don't know what they were rinsed with before I got them, and I didn't think to wash them out, but whatever it was made both of them react, and it was just the weirdest thing. And I didn't realize that because I hadn't tried it the first time I did. I tried the experiment to make sure I knew I had the right combination, but I didn't try it in those jars. So always test. Unlocking and decoding always takes longer than finding. So be aware that the finding things, especially if you have little kids, will go very fast. And then codes and ciphers. I think somebody mentioned that, you know, simple is better. People really do not get their heads around ciphers. And you really have to lead them to them and describe it. So I have to admit, I've never been to an escape room myself. And so all of my escape room experience is online. And so I love watching videos on it. These are a couple of websites that are really good, and a couple of YouTube channels that have some wonderful things. The Lego Librarian, if you haven't been on his blog, he's got 2 really good younger escape rooms that he does for his tween program. Escape with Janet Varney on Geek and Sundry on YouTube. There are, I think, 9 different full escape rooms with different themes that a lot of them are really fancy with electronics and things, but some of them are very simple. And just as a way to work a theme and decorate around is really great. Legacy Escape Box has breakdowns, some mechanics about specific things. And I just discovered him. And Down the Rabbit Hole is a woman who has a travel company, but she does family escape rooms for things at home. So they're very simple things you can do on a budget with things around the house that are very cool. So anyway, that's me.
Thank you, Ron. And for those of you looking for those direct links to Ron's materials, you can find them in the L2 event page. I posted a direct link to that. So this has been great. There's already some questions in the chat, so I think we should just dive right into it. I'm going to stop